thank you for coming. There, hello. So I'm Brian Kane, and I teach at Rhode Island School of Design. And maybe some of you have seen this fish. So before I get into my presentation, I'm going to start with the Discovery Channel just did a segment on me and the class, so I figured that's a good way to get started.
I gotta say, sometimes on a week like this, I get a little overwhelmed by the amount of genius that's displayed by all the inventors, but there's hope. Now, the sky is the limit, but we can start small. We could even repurpose what we've already got kicking around in the house.
What do you get when you mix artificial intelligence with a retro wall ornament? A viral video featuring the coolest big mouth Billy Bass you've ever seen. Prepare to be hooked.
Alexa, what is artificial intelligence?
Artificial intelligence means the branch of computer science that deal with writing computer programs that can solve problems creatively.
Hi, I'm Brian Kane, and I hacked Amazon Alexa into a big mouth Billy Bass.
For those who don't know, Amazon's Alexa is a personal assistant that uses artificial intelligence for your home. You can ask her to play your favorite music, give you traffic and weather reports, make to-do lists, and a whole bunch more. This is what she normally looks like. And this is what Brian turned her into.
I'm an artist and a designer, and I also am a professor here at Rhode Island School of Design. Last semester we started a new course called AI Design, and the idea there was to take a look ahead and see where artificial intelligence is going. A lot of what we're seeing from these AI products are mostly boring. They're pretty sterile and bland, and there's not much that people can relate to in any kind of way. As artists and designers, we work with emotional and social intelligence all day long. That's our meat and potatoes. It's our strong point. We've been thinking about how can we make these characters and personalities, and so that just seemed to me a funny thing, a talking fish. Here we can see the optical sensor and the sound sensor. Alexa, what time is it?
It's 1:34 p.m.
So when the light turns on, the optical sensor tilts up the fish's head, and when the sound plays, it moves the mouth on the fish. Here we have the Arduino, and the Arduino has a motor controller connected to it, and the motor controller is directly connected into the motors on the Billy Bass. When I first got it to work and we were in class and all the students were here, the first time that we heard Billy Bass speak like Alexa, it was a real sort of breakthrough moment because it was the first time for us that we'd been able to actually talk to an object.
This video has reached thousands of hits and counting, but that's not the most important thing that's come out of this.
The best feeling of being a teacher is really inspiring the students to do their own thing, and I think you walk away after an experience like this as a teacher thinking, wow, I really generated a lot of ideas and I got the students excited. I gave them a sense of wonder.
Using tools like Google Vision and open AI programs, his band of pupils are putting their own spin on the world of artificial intelligence.
What I wanted to do was to investigate what happens when AI becomes able to hold a conversation similar to a human. So what I did was I co-opted an Adobe software and used it to create a live interactable artificial intelligence. I actually used my own face that's tracked onto the illustration to create the appearance that someone's talking to Van Gogh in this case.
Who's the best artist?
The best artist is Vincent van Gogh, of course.
I think we, in a very sort of Lewis and Clark way, cut a path into the wilderness of these new types of characters and smart personalities, and other people can follow and start really flushing that out now and bringing a next generation of products that are exciting and fun and humorous and emotional.
It'll be hard to top this AI hack, but as they say, there are plenty of fish in the sea and bigger fish to fry.
Alexa, I love you.
That's really nice. Thanks.
All right, so there we go. pretty exciting to be able to do that with Discovery Channel. But let's talk a little bit about what's really going on there. So the name of my talk is Personality is the New Ringtone. And that's really because after working with this and researching it and making stuff, I've started to think about what I think the big new market's going to be as this stuff evolves, as these products come online. So a little bit of background. So 5 years ago, my friend Catherine and I, we started the, you might call it wearables, although I don't like that word, so I call it Fashion Interaction. We started the wearables program over at RISD, and we're focused on technology and fashion and coming up with stuff that's intriguing and new and novel, but mostly focused on the fashion side because we really feel that a lot of the wearable stuff it's too techy. It's not fashion enough. So we really focused on the fashion stuff, and that was a very, very successful program, and we've gotten a lot of attention from the fashion and the museum world. And then this year, I started looking, and I started saying, you know, all of these AI products are starting to hit the market, and it's really time to get artists and designers thinking about this stuff. So how can we be leading in this? How can we be looking at it from a user perspective and cutting a swath forward so that as these products get designed, they don't fail and that people love them. So we took. This is maybe, I don't know if there's any product designers in the room, but this is sort of the standard design thinking process. This is from the Don Norman, who wrote Emotional Design. And this is your standard iterative design process. So we took this process and we applied it to designing AI products. And if you haven't worked with this before, you start by empathizing, and in general, that's an observational process. So you actually go out and watch people, and that's a really, really great skill to have, especially when you're trying to understand how they're going to interact with products. Then you define whatever problem that you're trying to solve. You ideate, which is just a buzzword for coming up with ideas. And then you get to the part that I love, and that's prototyping. So everything that I try to emphasize, whether it's in the professional world of really building products or working with students, is that prototyping is the most important thing you're going to do in the whole process. And that's why I brought some toys here that we can play with. I can show you, and we can talk. I'm going to bring these outside after the conference, and we can play with them and break them, whatever. And what's interesting about the fish in particular is that was, I did that in class just as an example of how to create a really, really fast prototype. So I got these parts, it's all very inexpensive parts, and put it together in class in a couple hours and said, okay, now, here we made this thing, but do people like it? Does it work? So with my cell phone, I just took a quick video of it, and I said, let's do the easiest form of user testing that we can. Let's just post it on the internet and see if people like it. And then it went like unbelievably viral, and everybody loved it. And I said, okay, that's how you can do really fast, really, really quick prototyping and get feedback in the real world. So don't feel like you have to have your stuff in the lab and you can't show anyone. Get it out there as quick as possible. And in that case, it worked. All right, so these are a couple different ideas that I'm interested in, and I just wanted to throw them out there to you. Some of this stuff's going to be provocative and maybe a little controversial. But as I started to research what's going on with AI, I ran across this Marvin Minsky's emotion machine cognitive architecture. Maybe some of you are familiar with that. And I worked with a fellow named Bo Morgan on this. And that's on the left side. And that goes from low to high. So built-in reactive, learned reactive, deliberative, reflective, self-reflective, self-conscious. That's how mathematically, analytically, we start to analyze the mind in terms of thinking. But then on the right-hand side, that's Robert Cialdini's 6 Principles of Persuasion, and that's the stuff that, as a user experience designer, we use all the time. These are the principles that we're using in designing products so that you like them, so that you have a good experience. And you run into this all the time in pretty much everything that you use in marketing and et cetera. But when you put those together, you start combining thinking and persuading, and that becomes an incredibly powerful toolbox. And I personally think that there's really a lot that can be done here, and I don't want to get too deep into that, but I think that when I was watching the IBM presentation yesterday and they're starting to talk about sentiment analysis, that starts getting into this. So this is something that I look forward to researching as time goes by. The other thing that I'm really interested in, this is just my personal thing, there's been a lot of talk recently about can computers be creative? And I say yes. I think that they can. So I'm very much on the yes side of that, and I think that the stuff that they're going to do is going to be really cool and really exciting, and people are going to love it. But what I've put up here is, this is sort of like a designer, artist secret understanding of the way that we do things. And that's basically, you can understand creativity as a series of transformations. So by changing things, modifying them, reordering, moving them, inverting them, negating them, you transform them and you come up with something new. So there's really no reason to think that that can't be automated in a way that comes up with unbelievable things that nobody's ever seen before that they just absolutely love. And this is another area that I think is really, really ripe for research. I think that artificial creativity is going to be super hot, and it's going to hit soon. So thinking about AI, where we are right now. So to me, AI in 2017, it's really like the World Wide Web in 1994. I was there for that. It's this new thing, and everybody's excited, and there's this, like, something's going to happen, but we don't know what. Some people are working on it. It's still mostly techie people. It's not in everybody's hands yet. And then some of the odd things that if any of you guys remember in the early 90s, people would say things like, well, no one's ever going to buy anything on the web. Like, no one's ever going to type their credit card into a computer on a network. Well, we know that that didn't work out that way. There was this early product called Web TV, if there's anyone here that remembers that. And the reason I brought up Web TV is because we're seeing that now with a lot of these autonomous vehicles. And in many ways, you can think of these driverless cars like horseless carriages. So the picture below shows that's a horseless carriage, and it's basically, it was literally a carriage where they got rid of the horse. They hadn't really thought about what a car is yet. And over time, that's evolved, and now we know that a car is a car, and it really has nothing to do with a horse-drawn carriage. It's a fundamentally new thing. And on the left, you can see that's an image of one of the autonomous vehicles that's being designed and tested right now, and it's basically a car with this thing strapped on the top. And it's like driverless. Well, we can actually rethink the vehicle completely. And as we start to make these products smart, they're going to change in such fundamental ways that the new thing probably isn't going to be like the old thing at all. And there's nothing wrong with this. It's a very typical thing, but you tend to think of the new thing in terms of what it used to be. So it becomes important to sort of throw away your understanding of what things are now, but that way you can envision what they're going to be. We spent a lot of time thinking about autonomous vehicles, and that's a really exciting topic too. And again, I don't think it's going to be what people think that they're going to be. So in looking, part of what we did is we just looked around and said, well, what are the products right now that are out there? They're not terribly engaging. They're kind of new. They're kind of boring. They're all passive, and they're kind of creepy. So I think we have to really admit that there are some people that are creeped out by this stuff. It's weird. Some people love it. But it's not like the kind of product that you're going to get and you just fall in love with it and use it more and more and more. So this first generation product is great. There's fantastic work, but it's really going to evolve. One of the weirder things is who put that woman in the cylinder. So there's some very strange cultural things going on. And I think a lot of that has to do with the companies that are developing these products and also some other stuff that's going on, but there's, I think, some psychoanalysis that needs to go on of the industry as a whole. And the other thing that we've done with these products is that it's don't speak unless spoken to. And that's a very odd relationship to have. It's not the kind of relationship that we really have with other people, and so we're setting up this sort of digital slavery thing that we need to at least think about moving forward. It's not totally natural, and I think that that's not going to stick for very long. One of the more controversial things that we observed in doing tests on different types of devices is that I think that if you leave the mic on, that it's a more natural way of interacting with these objects. So all of these products now, you need to invoke them. You need to say, Alexa, and then it starts. But it's actually, when you start to look long-term what it's like to have one of these products in your life, if it's always listening to you, then it can be a part of the conversation with you, as opposed to something that you need to always go and have this like master-slave relationship with, and it's much more natural. And I know that's like a controversial thing, but I think it's better. Another thing that we noticed early on is that in making these voice recognition technologies, they took the screen away, but screens are good, so put the screen back. When we took Alexa and gave it to some kids to play with it, and it wasn't fun. They didn't.
Live by Carrie Job.
Alexa, stop. Okay. So we took that product that I won't say its name, and we gave it to some kids, and they sort of played with it a little bit, but not really. They were standoffish and it wasn't very cool. And then one of my students, Esther, took it and put it back with the screen into this fun box that you see there. And then all of a sudden, the kids started picking it up and playing with it. And especially kids, they love screens. All of a sudden, it became a toy, and they knew how to play with it. And it was just a very simple transformation with a laser cutter and some cardboard. And then on the lower side, that was one of my experiments. So I took that product, and I put it inside of that's a hamster ball. It's like a $3 hamster ball. And you could roll it around and throw it and play with it like a ball. And all of a sudden, the kids just loved that. So we can really improve on these products just at the product design level and make them much more engaging. The most important thing is that I think we need new narratives. And what we're doing is we're building this stuff that we grew up on in sci-fi movies. We're literally trying to build the Starship Enterprise, and there's a lot of interest in doing that. But if you can forget about building the Starship Enterprise, and I love sci-fi, then you can start to design and make these new products that don't exist, that nobody's thought of yet. So in many ways, those old narratives need to go away. And one of the narratives that's coming out now is the Frankenstein narrative. So everybody, you see on the news how AI is going to take over the world, and these are old narratives. We can chuck them away. And the more that you work with these products, the less you get afraid of them as well. And I just threw this up here. So I'd like to retire her. I'd like to make her go away. We know enough about her. There's really no value in that, so let's just make her go away. So from a user experience perspective, and that's what I'm primarily interested in, that's what I spend most of my time doing, and talking to people in the AI business on many levels, what I keep hearing is that the last mile for them is this thing with emotional and social intelligence. So there's unbelievable products out there. You guys can do amazing things, and you're going to do amazing things over the next few years. But it's getting this emotional and social intelligence piece right that makes it so that people will really enjoy it and fall in love with it or use it and trust it. And that's what we do. So that's the domain of designers, artists, writers, musicians. We know that stuff. So I think it's really important to start bringing in poets and writers and musicians and screenwriters into this process, because we understand the things like story arcs and narratives and humor and flowing through emotional states. It's just what we do. But we also need designers with new skills. So your ability to mock up some web screens, that doesn't help you in this world. Now we're talking about objects and people and connected objects and things that do different things, and you really need to see the bigger picture. And that's why I thought it was important to start up this new program, and we're trying to push out a generation of new designers for you guys to work with that have these new skills. Fake it to test it. Faking it is great. So it doesn't matter if it's real or not. You can make anything a fake experience and test it on people. It's real easy. There's incredible tools out there for doing online testing or for doing testing in the real world. And the goal is to rapid prototype. And when I say rapid prototype, I mean really fast. Like make something in a couple hours. Like come in that morning and after lunch, be ready to test it. Don't waste any time on making it perfect. Just make it do that thing that you want to test. And that's what these things are. And one of the new things with AI is that usually when we say user experience, we think the user is human, but it might not be. So now that we have these intelligent machines that are going to be filling our lives, we may need to have 2 or 3 machines talking to each other, and we need to start thinking about those interfaces. So you may need to design one type of experience for a human, but another one for another machine. And that's, I think, another area that it's just fundamentally new, and we need to think about. What's it like to live with these smart products? So a couple things. So we want to, in general, we're giving up control. As you start to use these things, you're going to give it a high-level command, and it's going to do something for you. And mostly we think of software products as giving you increasing control. Like it gets more and more and more specific. You can do all these tiny little things. So this helps us give up control. From a marketing perspective, that's great. It appeals to people's laziness. And laziness is, people love to be lazy. And they improve over time. So a lot of times we buy these digital products, and we think, well, maybe I'll use that for a year, and then I need to upgrade it and update it and throw it away. But these products, they actually get better the more that you use them. And it requires a commitment. You train it, but then over time, it actually gets better. And that's a new experience. There's all sorts of huge trust issues. So specifically with the autonomous vehicles, there's just trust issues all over the place. And the hardest one to answer, I think, is what would it take to put your kid alone in an autonomous vehicle? Let's stop and think about that. That's a huge leap of faith that you're going to have to do. And we can solve that with design, because we know that the technology can figure out how to make that vehicle go from here to there. But what does it take for someone to actually trust it on that level? That's a design problem. And then there's issues with digital loneliness in the world. That's sort of a big problem right now. And so we can look to a lot of these intelligent products to work not solving problems necessarily, but being there as more of an emotional companion. And that may have a bigger value than necessarily being a problem-solving product. And then there's all this backlash culture. And I put up the picture of the turntable. So vinyl records are really popular now. Don't ask me why. But with all of these products, as they get more and more high tech, there's always a backlash against it. So you want to think about that when you're designing these new things. So you can imagine in 10 years that the most romantic thing you could possibly do would be to take a date on a drive where you're manually driving a car, right? Yeah, I drove her to the restaurant. And that's like such a romantic thing in a 2002 Chevrolet. It's coming. So now I'd like to bring up one of my grad students, Lokesh Sope, and he can talk very quickly. We're a little short on time, but he's going to talk very quickly about some of these tools that we use for designing new narratives and looking at these new products.
Hi, my name is Lokesh Sope. I'm a final year grad student at Rhode School of Design, and my work is about trying to understand how emotional intelligence fits into artificial intelligence and what sort of classifiers would be required in order to make these machines emotionally intelligent. And Brian Kane has been a great mentor and guide throughout my process over here. And building on what Brian just said, it's like we need more narratives and we need new narratives. So I built these few research tools to understand what people think about when they interact with all these objects and how emotions fit into there. So I built these interactive tools where you have this mood wheel and objects. So people would be placing the objects near the moods, and they would be talking about how they felt as they were interacting with these objects. And the second one is this little card game that I have here, which I call Story Engine, where people make these random combinations as a cranky vacuum cleaner or a depressed bed or fearful vacuum cleaner and stuff like that, and what these objects would be like. And what they're talking about is how they would imagine an object behaving in an emotional manner. So this gave rise to another project that I worked on with Brian Kane about this, which was one person came up with this prompt of a cranky microwave, and I asked, what's a cranky microwave? So the person said, maybe it just sends out cranky sounds at me. Like, why would it be cranky? What made it cranky? Then he said, oh, maybe my food choice is something that made it cranky. Then that gave rise to another project where, what if I hack a microwave and make it do the same thing? So I just took a microwave, took out the magnetron, and then put a camera in there. And so the microwave detects the food that's in there and tries to compare it with use an API to see what the food is, and makes a log of what the person has been eating. And based on whether or not the food is healthy, it'll either make a sad sound or a happy sound. And I use the sound of the yellow minions from Despicable Me. And this kind of brings me to the point where these animation artists and character artists, they put so much effort into understanding what is adorable for people and try to build that. So for a project like this, I would definitely like to work with animation artists and like story writers on that. Yeah, so
okay.
I'll hand over to you.
We're trying to get this compressed, so we're moving very quickly. So this is really exciting, and all of a sudden you start to think about, like, yeah, how does the cranky toaster talk to the excited vacuum cleaner? And that's like an interesting story, and we need to figure that out, because that's coming in the next few years. So moving quickly, so we learned a few lessons. So one is, I think that this whole idea of assistant and agent is not that cool. And I think that there's a lot more action on this concept of a companion, a friend, or a pet. And if we start to think about our relationship with other people, and especially with animals, I think there's a lot there. Thinking about AI as a pet. That those are the ones that people are going to get really connected to. One size fits all isn't such a great approach. So all these products now, there's one Alexa for everyone. There's one Siri for everyone. That's probably not good. And that gets to the topic of my conversation, where we want to be able to customize it. We actually want to get that out to the point where people can make their own. They need to be able to sit at home and edit their own personality and upload it and share it and send it, because that's what people do on the internet, right? So you think of it, taking it, commodifying an AI into this little thing that you can send all around and share, and who's got the cool personality now, or these smart moments that you can send to people. I think that's going to explode in the next few years. But I think it should be open source, and we need to make these editors, and someone's going to make the product. So if these guys don't do it, some other new startup's going to make a programmable interface. All sorts of barriers to connectivity. It's a mess. I probably don't need to tell you guys that, but between the Bluetooth and the Wi-Fi and the apps, and these things don't work together. They're a pain. Synthetic emotions are really important, so we don't necessarily need to replicate human interactions. People like machines, and it's okay to think about synthetic emotions and synthetic reactions, because that may actually be more appealing to interact with than something that's not doing that good a job of being a human. Dumbness and humor is really important. These things can be not too smart. And I think that we want to actually program a lot of these machines to periodically make non-hurtful mistakes. And that way, they don't seem too superior to you. So one of the things, just on a human emotional level, is the last person that you want to hang out with is the person that's always smarter than you, that always knows the answer, that's perfectly polite, that never makes a mistake and looks better than you. Like, you don't want to be with that person. So we want these things to have flaws, right? It's annoying. And we can, in many ways, as the market evolves, we can stop thinking about solving problems, because we can think beyond function. So if you look at the way that the internet has evolved, there's some stuff that's really useful, but the huge majority of it is Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, all of this stuff that's just cultural. It's just human stuff. It's not there. The original vision that was going to create this, information superhighway, and everybody's going to be super educated because they're reading Descartes all day long, that didn't happen. What they're doing is they're posting memes on Twitter, and so that's like the dominant modality. Here, going through this again, I think there's an opportunity to create this emotional markup language so that these objects can talk to each other with a standardized schema for emotions. Lots of opportunity to use existing objects. So we don't necessarily need to introduce new objects into the house. And everybody's got a phone, right? So there's so much smart in the phone that it's really possible, and that's why I brought this, that you could take your phone and when you go home at night, you've got this object that you connect it to, and all of a sudden there's all sorts of stuff in here, and this can be animated and move all around. So we can expand on the phone to do new functions because there's so much power in there. AI celebrities are coming soon. That's my prediction in the next few years. Probably within the next 18 months, there's going to be this AI celebrity that's either telling jokes or making videos or making paintings and selling them for $100,000. We don't know. And we need a lot more deep testing, and there's a huge opportunity there. And we don't need these super smart machines to do the testing. So if you want to, I've always been fascinated by how NASA puts people on the side of a volcano for 6 months to see what it's like to live on Mars. So we can do that. We can build a fake autonomous car and send somebody from Boston to Washington and see what it's like to be in this thing for 8 hours, because we don't know. People might panic, and if it doesn't do what you want it to do, there could be all sorts of issues with claustrophobia that we just don't know about. So there's a lot of opportunity to test that stuff. Now, I want to leave you with one thing. So everybody's like, well, how are you going to top that fish? You heard that. Well, we topped it, I think. And here it is. Here's what I think is the kind of product that people, I think, are going to fall in love with. And ta-da. So it's a microwave. And do we want to try to demo? Let me show you. I have a video real quick. I know I'm running really. This is only a 30-second video, and then we'll demo that real quick. Here's what it is. Go. Okay. All right, so the Jif microwave, and we're going to run it. We're actually going to try it.
Just like
so,
a pizza.
Lokesh said he was working on his project, and then we sort of turned it into this. But this is super fun. I think people love it. Everybody we show it to loves it. But it's also a great example of, this is a super low-cost, real easy thing that you can put together in terms of prototyping. This is a junky old microwave that we found, and it's connected with some other parts, and it's using these super low-cost APIs. There's all of these incredible APIs out there that we can use now. So let's give it a shot and see if it actually works.
Let's put the pizza in there.
Yeah.
Oh,
Does it work? What's it got? Internet's slow. No? That's why we have video. Oh, there we go. All right, so hey, it got pepperoni. That's awesome. So, we added a couple minor features to it. So if you hit it, it'll bring up a new one for you. Do we have coffee?
yeah.
Yeah. All right. So let's try that instead. If you didn't want pizza, maybe you wanted to have a cup of coffee or something. Let's give that a shot. Let's see if that works. I don't know if you guys can see the screen or not. Espresso. Okay. Not bad, right? But if you didn't like that, then you can. The internet's really slow, so we're actually doing the API calls through the room internet. Oh, here we got Homer. Okay. So as you're cooking your food, you can have something really entertaining. And I have 50 seconds left, so let me just explain some of the inspiration behind this. So when we're doing user experience, what we're thinking is, how can we take something terrible? So we thought, what's the saddest, most depressing appliance? Well, that's a microwave, right? And how can we make that into the best thing, the best experience for you? And so we think that this is a way that you'd actually enjoy heating up your cup of coffee. All of a sudden, the microwave becomes something really, really cool for you. And that's what we try to do with user experience, is take something that's yucky and make it something great. And using all this AI stuff, like I just want to say this, there's going to be some amazingly fun products that come out in the next few years. There's unbelievable opportunities, and people are going to be making things that we can't even really imagine. And I have 10 seconds left. My coffee is warmed up. And thank you very much for the opportunity to do this. We're done. Thank you.
Thanks, Brian. I love the idea of an AI celebrity, so finally Max Headroom comes back. It's going to be awesome. I don't know how dated that reference is for everybody. Some very quick notes. We did push the time, so it's 10 o'clock now. On the schedule, it says sessions at 10. Instead of starting at the hour, they're going to start 10 after the hour and run to the hour. Also, Brian says, Brian and Lukesh will be outside to play around with stuff and answer questions if people have any, so they'll be right outside the room here. There's going to be another session happening in the room.
We can play with it and break it and do whatever anybody wants.
Excellent.
To do.
Break their stuff. Yep. And Olivier is also up for questions. You can find him outside the room very shortly as well. Let's see, we pushed the time. They'll be outside. And finally, there's a closing session today. How many people actually remember the Java Posse? Okay, so there's like 5 people. It should be a fun session to close it out. Also, there's beer and pizza sponsored by Atlassian. Please join us for the closing session at 5. And in the meantime, have a great time at the conference today and learn lots of stuff. Thank you.